Welcome to QuantumX. In today's episode, we follow a builder, Stephen from Break Free Homestead, as he begins transforming a standard garage into a fully livable space. This is more than just a renovation, it's a structural challenge: ventilation, insulation, and efficient use of space. A garage, originally built for vehicle loads, cold concrete floors, and sealed walls, now needs to adapt for long-term human living. Throughout this project, you'll see how he approaches foundation adjustments, load-bearing structures, and most importantly, how he shifts the mindset from storage space to living environment. If you're into DIY, off-grid living, or want a deeper technical understanding of real-world conversions, this is for you. Stay until the end, because the smallest details define the integrity of the entire build. He cuts into the wall to access the header, the load-bearing beam above the garage opening. Any weakness here compromises the entire roof load. The exposed wood tells a clear story: long-term moisture damage. Some sections are rotting, with visible signs of termite and ant activity. Stephen doesn't try to salvage them. He removes everything compromised, because in renovation, keeping damaged material means inheriting future failure.
Stephen begins removing the entire interior drywall of the garage, not just for replacement, but to gain full access to the structural framing behind it. As each panel comes off, old insulation is revealed, compressed, damp, and no longer effective. This is a mandatory step in any serious renovation. Only by stripping away the finished surface can a builder accurately assess the condition of the wooden frame, fasteners, and load-bearing points. Stephen works with precision, preserving the core structure while removing the outer layer. He doesn't assume, he verifies.
With the interior opened up, Stephen moves outside, continuing the removal of the garage's exterior siding. Unlike drywall, this outer layer acts as the first line of defense, protecting against rain, sun, and moisture intrusion. Each panel is removed carefully, ensuring the sheathing and framing behind remain intact. At this stage, he closely inspects connection points, door edges, wall corners, and horizontal seams. These are the most vulnerable areas, where water intrusion typically begins. Some sections show signs of warping and slight swelling, clear indicators of prolonged moisture exposure. Stephen doesn't just remove them, he evaluates what can be salvaged, separating reusable material from compromised sections. As the siding comes off, the wooden frame is fully exposed, and now the build shifts from hiding problems to confronting them directly. With the structure fully assessed, Stephen moves on to the foundation, an often overlooked detail, but critical for long-term durability. He begins forming a new concrete curb directly tied in to the existing garage slab. This isn't just an extension, it's a structural transition, ensuring the old and new sections act as a single unit. This concrete edge serves two key purposes. First, it acts as a barrier to prevent water from entering the living space. Second, it provides a solid, level base for the wooden framing above. Stephen starts with the most critical interface, the existing slab. He applies a concrete bonding adhesive from Quikrete, ensuring the new concrete will adhere firmly and act as a single unified mass, preventing future separation. Next, he builds the formwork using 2x6 lumber to shape the new concrete edge. Both sides are securely fixed with jigs installed to prevent bulging under the pressure of wet concrete.
If you found this content helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to Quantum X. Your support is what keeps us bringing you better and more valuable builds.
With the form locked in place, Stephen moves on to steel reinforcement. Horizontal bars run across the form, while vertical bars are anchored into the base, creating a three-dimensional load-bearing system. This sequence is intentional. Bond first, shape second, reinforce last. And this order defines the true durability of the entire structure. He uses pre-mixed Quickcrete 50-pound bags. Given the small volume, around 5 to 6 bags, he mixes manually, using a shovel and hoe to control consistency and moisture in each batch. The mix is then poured into the prepared form. No rushing, he spreads it evenly, ensuring the concrete fully surrounds the rebar and fills all voids. Finishing is kept basic. The surface is leveled but not overworked since it will be covered later. The priority remains water resistance and a stable load-bearing base. After removing the form, minor surface pitting appears, caused by trapped air or slight inconsistencies in mixing. Stephen addresses this using quick-setting cement, patching and smoothing the surface. It's not a structural necessity, but it reflects controlled, disciplined craftsmanship. With the foundation secured, Stephen moves to the main wall, where the space begins to take shape. 2 windows, each about 3 feet wide, are positioned on both sides, leaving a 55-inch gap in the center for a TV area. He starts with layout planning, optimizing placement to minimize moving existing studs. Some original studs are retained, while unnecessary ones are removed, keeping the structure efficient yet strong. Next comes wall framing adjustment. Studs are detached from the sheathing and repositioned precisely to match the window dimensions. The most critical element is the header. Stephen builds it using 2x6 lumber with a rough opening of about 36.75 inches and a total header span of roughly 39.75 inches, including jack studs. The purpose is clear: transfer the load above safely to the sides. He then completes the framing, installing king studs and jack studs to define the window openings. Finally, from the exterior, he cuts through the siding using a router, opening the exact window positions. A precise cut here determines the success of everything that follows.
The second window is built using the same process. Both window openings must align perfectly, not just in size, but in level and spacing, ensuring balanced load distribution and visual symmetry. As the second opening is completed, the wall begins to breathe. Natural light can now pass through the space. And from this point on, the garage is no longer enclosed, it's becoming livable.
As the project moves to the flooring stage, a clear issue emerges. The garage slab sits lower than the main house. Stephen needs to raise the floor by about 5.5 inches to create a seamless transition. He begins by applying a moisture barrier using Drywall directly onto the concrete. This layer is critical, preventing moisture from rising and damaging the insulation and wood structure above. Next, he rips 2x6 lumber to achieve the exact required height at the doorway, a small detail that defines proper alignment. The floor framing system is then installed. Joists are laid out at the standard 16 inches on center, ensuring even load distribution and minimizing deflection. During installation, Stephen uses additional lumber and plywood shims to fine-tune the height, correcting imperfections in the existing slab. Without this step, the floor would never be truly level. This marks a key transition from raw concrete to a controlled subfloor system ready to support a livable space.
With the floor framing complete, Stephen moves on to a layer often underestimated: insulation. He installs R19 insulation between the joists. This is a standard rating for floors, sufficient to retain heat during colder conditions and reduce energy loss through the concrete below. Each insulation piece is cut to fit tightly, leaving no gaps, because even a small void can significantly reduce thermal performance. Right after that, he installs the subfloor on top. Plywood sheets are securely fastened to the joists, creating a continuous and stable surface. Stephen checks every joint, ensuring there's no flex or unevenness. Once the finish layer goes on, there's no second chance to fix what's underneath. At this point, the structure finally has a complete floor, no longer a garage slab, but the foundation of a livable space.
With the floor completed, Stephen begins defining functional space, the bathroom area. He carefully determines the positions for the toilet and vanity. Nothing is arbitrary. Every placement considers plumbing routes, standard clearances, and future maintenance access. Blocking is added within the wall framing, a small but critical detail, providing solid anchor points for fixtures instead of relying solely on drywall. Next, he frames the interior wall for the bathroom. Stud spacing, door placement, and connection points are all pre-planned, ensuring precise alignment during finishing. The wall is installed with a tight fit. Stephen has to apply force to set it into place, a clear sign of precision with no tolerance for gaps. After roughly 6 hours of work, the floor and one main wall are complete, and at this point, the space begins to feel like a real room. He begins by cutting through the wall from the inside, going through the sheathing and siding to create a vent path. The flange is then installed and tightly fitted against the exterior surface. This is a critical junction. If not properly sealed, rainwater can penetrate back into the wall. Electrical wiring is pre-positioned, left ready for the electrician to complete later. No rushing. Each system is handled separately, but must integrate seamlessly. With the windows installed, Stephen returns to the exterior shell, reinstalling the siding. He cuts and installs each panel with control and precision. This isn't just about putting it back, it's about aligning every row, ensuring straight, consistent lines across the wall. A critical detail is expansion allowance. Stephen doesn't fasten the panels too tightly. He leaves the necessary gap, allowing the siding to expand and contract with temperature changes without warping or cracking. Joints are handled carefully. He staggers them instead of aligning them vertically, creating a more natural, seamless appearance from a distance. This is the exterior finish, but also the first line of defense. If done incorrectly, moisture will find its way inside. For Stephen, siding isn't just about looks, it's about protecting everything behind it. Just when the siding seemed complete, Stephen identifies a flaw. size differences between new and old panels causing misalignment. Instead of ignoring it, he addresses the root cause. He combines both old and new siding, selectively adjusting pieces to realign the entire layout. More importantly, he removes and reinstalls the starter strip. This is the baseline. If it's off, everything above follows the same error. Redoing the work isn't fast, but it's necessary. In real construction, fixing early is always cheaper than fixing late.
If you found this content helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to Quantum X. Your support is what keeps us bringing you better and more valuable builds.
With the rough-in work completed, Stephen returns to inspect the entire system before closing the walls. He moves through each area, from the bathroom to the main living space. The exhaust fan and lighting are installed with independent switches. A GFCI outlet is correctly positioned at the vanity, meeting safety standards for wet areas. The plumbing system is also in place. Stephen checks pipe routing, drainage slope, and the backup option of a pump if needed. Baseboard heating is installed cleanly along the wall, sufficient for maintaining warmth in this compact space. He doesn't overlook connectivity. Coax and Ethernet lines are run inside the walls, with precise connection points set behind the TV and modem. Everything is complete, but still exposed, and this is the critical moment, the final inspection. Because once the drywall goes up, any mistake becomes much harder to fix. After completing the system inspection, Stephen moves into sealing the space, installing insulation. He cuts each insulation bat to fit precisely between the studs, ensuring a snug fit without overcompressing or leaving gaps. In the bathroom area, he uses R13 material, providing not only thermal control but also sound dampening between spaces. This is a calculated choice. In a compact layout, noise control matters just as much as temperature regulation. Stephen installs each section carefully, keeping the insulation properly positioned and stable. Every detail serves one purpose, creating a consistent buffer before closing the walls. At this stage, all systems are in place and partially covered. The structure is nearly ready for drywall installation. Once the walls are closed, the project moves fully into the interior finishing phase. With insulation in place, Stephen moves into the stage that defines the space, drywall installation. He starts with the ceiling first, then moves down to the walls. This is the correct sequence, providing solid anchoring above while supporting the wall panels below. Each drywall sheet is lifted, aligned, and fastened into the framing. Areas with electrical wiring and network cables are carefully measured and cut before installation. Any mistake here creates major issues during finishing. Stephen works section by section, completing most of the ceiling before transitioning to the walls. He doesn't rush, but maintains steady precision, ensuring every panel fits correctly from the start. As the first sheets go up, the space begins to close in. All internal systems gradually disappear from view. And from this point on, the project shifts from raw construction into a defined, livable interior.
The entire drywall system is now fully installed. The space is enclosed, but not yet perfect. Minor imperfections start to appear. Gaps between panels, oversized electrical cutouts, these are normal in real-world construction. Stephen doesn't ignore them. He addresses them immediately with pre-fill, using a 45-minute setting compound to fill all gaps. The goal is clear. Eliminate internal voids and stabilize the surface before taping. Skip this step, and joints are likely to crack, compromising the final finish. He scrapes the surface as flat as possible from the start, because every small imperfection now multiplies during sanding later. This isn't about aesthetics, it's about correction, ensuring the final finish is both durable and smooth. With the gaps pre-filled, Stephen moves to surface bonding, taping the joints. He uses fiber tape for the seams between panels. It offers strong adhesion, helping stabilize the joints from the start. For wall corners, he chooses Flex 90, a reinforced corner tape. Compared to standard paper tape, it holds shape better, resists deformation, and is easier to control during installation. He cuts at a 45-degree angle and pre-folds the tape before applying. A small step, but it ensures tight, accurate placement without shifting while applying. Next comes the first coat. Stephen applies mud over the taped areas, not just on the joint, but extending outward. The principle is clear. The wider the blend, the smoother the surface. Hand pressure and knife angle are constantly adjusted to avoid ridges and marks. This is the transition from correction to surface creation, and the quality here defines the final finish. Once the mud has fully dried, Stephen moves on to sanding, the stage of surface refinement. He uses around 220 grit sandpaper, fine enough to smooth the surface without damaging the compound. A respirator is essential. Drywall dust may be fine, but it's not harmless. A simple but effective trick: shine a light along the wall surface. Side lighting reveals imperfections that are otherwise invisible. The process doesn't stop at one pass. Stephen repeats the cycle. Apply, sand, then apply again. High spots are feathered out, blended gradually so the surface appears seamless to the eye. Once the desired smoothness is achieved, he cleans everything thoroughly. A leaf blower and vacuum remove all drywall dust, an essential step before painting.
Then comes primer, applied evenly across the walls. The ceiling is painted first using flat ceiling paint, reducing glare and hiding imperfections. This sequence is intentional. Ceiling first to protect the floor work that comes later. After completing the bathroom floor, Stephen moves to the main living area. This time, he installs vinyl plank flooring, a practical choice, easy to work with and moisture resistant. Before installation, a thin underlayment, about 3 millimeters, is laid across the surface. This pad reduces noise, adds comfort, and compensates for minor floor imperfections. The key detail, however, is around the door area.
Stephen trims the bottom of the door by about 1/4 inch, ensuring it clears the new flooring. He uses an oscillating tool to undercut the door frame, creating a precise gap. This allows the flooring planks to slide underneath instead of being cut around the frame. The result is a seamless finish. No visible gaps, no need for trim covers. This is the difference between basic work and skilled craftsmanship. Plank by plank, the floor comes together, and the space finally starts to feel complete.
Stephen begins installing the vinyl floor with the base row. He aligns it perfectly straight because any deviation at the start will carry through the entire floor. The planks are connected using a click lock system. He installs the short edge first, then locks the long edge, ensuring tight, gap-free joints. At difficult areas, corners, door frames, Stephen measures and cuts each plank precisely. There's no guesswork here. Even a few millimeters off will result in visible gaps.
The doorway is handled with care. The flooring ends cleanly under the threshold, with a transition strip covering the joint. Where height differences exist, a reducer is added to eliminate uneven edges. Once completed, the floor is flat, tight, and seamless, especially at transition points. The locking system holds firmly, with no warping or misalignment. The takeaway is clear. The first row defines everything. Undercutting door frames elevates the finish significantly. And in flooring, slow and precise always beats fast and flawed.
With the core structure complete, Stephen moves into finishing details, window trim and casing. A small step, but one that defines the sense of completion. He handles two types of windows. For flat sliding windows, trim is applied directly to the frame. But for grooved track windows, standard trim would leave gaps, so he builds a custom casing to fully conceal them. Everything starts with measurement. Width, height, and especially the reveal. The visible edge must be consistent for a clean look. Wood pieces are cut to match the frame depth, with added overlap. During installation, shims are used to fine-tune alignment, ensuring tight, straight edges before nailing. The outer trim is cut at 45-degree miters, installed vertical pieces first, then horizontal. Stephen adjusts as he nails, refining alignment down to the millimeter.
Small gaps are sealed with caulk, and nail holes are filled with putty. On painted wood, imperfections virtually disappear. This isn't just finishing work. It's the step that turns a technical build into a livable space.
From a cold, enclosed garage, this space has been methodically transformed through structural inspection, foundation work, framing, system installation, and layered finishing. Stephen didn't rush. He built it right. Every stage, from demolition, concrete reinforcement, wall framing and rough-ins, to drywall and flooring, was executed with intention. Nothing unnecessary, and no mistake left unaddressed. What stands out isn't just the final result. It's the process, checking everything, fixing issues at the source, and preparing for what will eventually be hidden. That's the difference between getting it done and building something that lasts. If you're planning a renovation, building your own space, or simply want to understand how real structures come together,